Hi. Well, today I'm going to give you a video, a YouTube video, shared video, whatever that you are seeing on whatever channel, uh, that I can repurpose this content in a way. I don't know. But someone has asked me, not me personally, but in a WhatsApp group, they were asking about ideas and solutions to improve in email marketing and LinkedIn to get new customers, to get a better business. Now, email marketing has been one of my main channels, one of my main topics that I've been talking about for more than the 30 years, I guess. And by this time, I started working with email marketing in 96, 98. It's a discrepancy here because in 96 I was very new to the channel. I was just scraping some of the um, best practices in a way, but in 98 we actually, me and a few colleagues of mine, launched a business that was actually on email marketing. But that's not the point. It's just to say that I've been using email marketing for quite some time as my main business. So I know a few things about that, and I'm going to share with you, I hope. So it might be interesting for you or not. If not, keep scrolling in a way. But if it is, please hang tight on that end. This is not scripted, as you may already understood by my rambling about. But this is basically my genuine answer, or in this case, inspiration to do this video is to share some of the things that I've have pretty sure that it's going to work every time on this kind of channel. So let's get right into it. So email marketing. Email marketing, when you are using email and you are sending a few emails, and this is depends on what you are doing from the start. What I mean is, are you doing cold outreach? Are you doing opt-in, double opt-in kind of procedures? All of that really matters, right? And it's different for a bunch of businesses. It all depends on what it's your strategy, what is your goals, and so on. Now, one thing that is common for all of these situations is the authentication, or in this case, the deliverability. It doesn't matter. You can send like a 1,000, 1 million emails, and you don't receive like error messages or bounces or stuff like that, or even spam complaints, and you are feeling pretty good, like, okay, I'm sending a lot of emails, but I'm not getting a lot of results. It could be like replies, clicks, um, conversions in some way. Okay, that could happen. And the main reason, it could be because you are very bad on building a good copy for the email, but it might be because of the deliverability. And in today's age, like in 2026, as I'm recording this, the deliverability, in this case, the authentication of the systems that are sending your email, matters a lot. Okay, so quite recently, about 2 weeks ago, I was giving a class in Barcelona to students about email marketing. And I have a few slides here that I'm going to share with you, particularly on this part about the authentication. Okay, now these are some of the slides that I shared on class a few weeks ago in Barcelona about this matter, about email marketing. And I'm not going to give you an entire class about all of that, but I'm going to just give you a few pointers that are very important for this matter. So, email marketing needs, even though you are sending like a lot of emails and so on, it doesn't mean that it's going to actually be delivered on the recipient's inbox. And the reason, it could be like a bunch of stuff. It could be the copy, some of the stuff that you are sending, it's not considered very safe, and so on. That could be a lot of reasons, but the main reasons are technical. The main reasons it's because your email doesn't have the authentication that says that it was you that was sending actually the email and not someone impersonating as you guys. So this means that you have the need to activate a few of the authentications that says that that platform that you are using to send those emails have the permission from the domain name to send emails on their name. So it's almost like you have a ruinunes.com, which is one of my websites, and if I send an email using a Ruinunge email sender, it needs to have some authentication that says, okay, the Ruinunge domain name is allowing this platform to send emails on their name, right? So let's get into it. On this situation, when you are sending all of these emails, mailbox providers, they are the ones that are going to decide if they are going to place on the general inbox, or if it goes to one of those tabs and so on, or even to spam, right? So your reputation and the authentication, and this is something that you need to build up from the scratch, needs to be consistent, in needs to have a real uh, good reputation in that matter for you to be delivered on the inbox. So if you have everything in terms of the new baseline, so Gmail, Yahoo, and Outlook, and so on, they have right now one of the most demanding kind of rules when it comes to deliver their emails on their inboxes. So Google and Yahoo, for instance, in last no in 2024, they made a lot of requirements for senders to use, and they have applied that in quite a systematic approach. So even last year and to this year, we have seen a lot of good senders that are in a way being blocked because they haven't implemented the technical side uh, the right way. So what we are seeing here is that if you don't have all of these requirements at hand, we are not going to be reaching out to the our recipients inbox. So the technical side is super important. How we can do that? It's by having three authentication records. So the SPF, it's basically when you have like a method, or in this case, an authentication that you place on the platform that it's sending from your side. So it's saying that, okay, this IP that it's being used by this platform has an information on my domain name that it's allowed to send emails on my name or in my domain name. So that's one of them. I can go further on this later on if you feel that it's important. If it is, please comment below or something like that, that you want a more deep approach on that. Then it's the DKIM, which is basically almost like an hash of cryptography in a way that between the email that you are sending, or this case the platform is sending, needs to have almost like a password and a double password in a way on the domain name. It needs to match and to identify, okay, this is from a legit sender, that it's allowed by my domain name to send emails. Finally, DMARC. DMARC is basically a rule that it's implemented, and it needs to be technically implemented as well, where we say what the recipient, in this case, Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook.com, whatever, needs to do if it doesn't pass the SPF and DKIM tests. If it doesn't pass, what you should do in a way, it's like quarantine or remove entirely. When you go to remove, like, don't even deliver on spam or whatever, just delete it. When you do that, you have the capacity to have one thing further, which is BIMI. BIMI is, it's not an authentication procedure. It's basically almost like a reward. When you have your logo, your brand company logo presented on the avatars inside of the email. So you see those circles that you have about the person, the sender. It could be like a big logo about your brand, but it's almost like a reward system or authentication system, a proof, a seal about, okay, this is a legit email that you are receiving. So BIMI basically it's when you have everything in line, everything in the authentication working, and finally you have the reward about placing your logo there. It's almost like that blue authentication signal that you have on social media. On email, you have BIMI. Okay, I hope this gives you a few hints on how to do it. Now, reputation, it can be damaged very fast, but it needs sometimes some time to actually get it done, obviously, and to build it from the ground up. It needs to basically to warm up all of the new domains and IPs gradually. So that's why the cold outreach that you see so many times being displayed online, like those AI systems that are duplicating subdomains, domains, and so on, and building very fast a lot of emails to be sent automatically by AI and so on, representing your company, but using new domains and IPs to the protect in a way your original domain, that it's not going to work effectively because they are new, they don't have enough reputation in terms of warming up all of those emails, they still don't have enough history of good sendings and people liking them. Basically, you don't clicking on spam or don't clicking on unsubscribe and so on, or even engaging with your email. So this is something that needs some history of good rates and so on to actually get things going. And that's why it's not interesting to use this kind of approach that it's always changing new domains and so on, to sending from those domains to try to protect your own, because nowadays, guess what, they are also using AI. The email recipients in this case, or Gmail, ESPs, email service providers, they are also using AI to define, okay, is this coming from or promoting a particular business or a domain name. So they can find out that it's a concerted effort on your part to, in a way, get away on doing spam, right? So it's important to have a really cool approach on how to build your reputation on email marketing going forward. Okay, so another thing is to clean your list. You should. I'm very fond of double opt-in. I'm going to express a bit more about that later on, but basically you get less conversions, signups, but you have much more quality and so on, but also validate addresses and so on, removes the hard bounces. It's one of my best and preferred ways of doing email marketing. Then you also need to clean up regularly your list, because the ones that are not engaging in any way, sometimes they are dragging and making your results look even bad, or even worse than it should be, right? So this is going to also impact your deliverability as well. Another thing that it's also important to understand is that you can't use AI to get out of this in a way. You can use it as a step-by-step instructor on how to do it, but you actually are not using AI to do it effectively. Usually what AI does, even with agents and so on, is like they erase what they shouldn't in terms of engagement and so on, and eventually they don't are much help unless you are asking them to how to prepare the SPF, DKIM, etc. But other than that, it's not a good help. So this is basically like a technical side of email marketing, and needs to have like discipline list rules. It's not something that you can use AI to gamify it in a way. Okay, so this is one of the most important things that goes from B2C to B2B to whatever in terms of email marketing. You need to have your authentication as a sender really well prepared. Otherwise, you're not going to land on their inbox, no matter how good your email is. Okay, that's one of the things. Okay, another thing that you can also do to get better emails in this aspect is how you can build it. Okay, if you ask an AI to build your email from scratch in terms of code and so on, you can actually do that. It's not that a problem. But if you just ask for AI to build an email from scratch and you don't have the technical understanding on how it needs to be built, it's going to develop not so good kind of code, and eventually it's going to be disrupted or even broken in some of the email inboxes. Like for instance, if you are sending for people that still uses a old school kind of Outlook, maybe it's going to be broken because it doesn't understand how the code needs to be addressed on that particular situation. So email, it's kind of old school kind of HTML that you need to build. It doesn't receive well JavaScript and stuff like that. So needs to be a thing that it's really well built in terms of emails, right? So I use this kind of product, which is Stripo.email. And what they do basically is like a builder of email marketing. So you can actually, not being a coder, you can use a drag and drop kind of approach, and then you have access to build your email from scratch that you are mostly confident that it's going to work in whatever the email that you are going to send. So it could be even using very complex situations, like, for instance, when you are having like let me just see a few examples. So you have a few templates that you could use, but also you can build it from scratch, and it's going to be very good on how it's going to be rendered in a way by most of the systems. Now, what they also have, it's like the possibility to build up a lot of AMP for email. Eventually, like place videos on your email. It's not going to actually have the video there, but it needs to be rendered, or in this case, displayed on YouTube or whatever the tool. But what they do, it's basically create the first seconds or even the thumbnail of the video there with the play button, which increases the clicks and so on. So what I mean is, you need to have a tool like this that can render an email that it's going to work in most of the SPs. Otherwise, they are going to be broken. Or even, for instance, I don't know if you know this, but when the time is there, all of the screens usually turn into a dark shade, the night shift in a way from mobile and laptops and so on, which if your email is not rendered for that, it's still going to have that glowing light about being all white and so on. So it needs to also have the dark mode on emails, and this tool also does that very well. So what I want to share as well, it's let me just okay, so I have this my template for sendXmail. Basically, it has a structure about three sections. There's a case study. Usually, there's the insight, and then finally, there's an actionable idea they can do. So this is all Monday. All of so once a week, every Monday they are going to have these three sections, right? So, but all of these, I can build it right from the cuff, right here. I can place the headline here. I have the also the possibility to place the personalization tags like this one. So if I don't have their name, there's a quirky kind of way to approach them. So there's a lot of stuff that I can just drag and drop over here, right? So this helps a lot on making sure that this is going to work in most of the systems. So I can, for instance, see how it's going to be seen on mobile and so on. But also, I can, let me just show you the preview. So, as you can see, you have the laptop version, but also the iPhone, and you can even choose what kind of phone that you have to see how it's going to be rendered. So, this helps again on the technical side of building the emails that are going to be useful, right? So, another thing, so this is the technical side. It needs to have all of these uh, buttons and whistles and everything, so it needs to work. Another thing that it's also important for you to keep on the emails, it's to have this button here, which is a web version. I know that most of the people already sees our email in a good way. However, it's also important to have this link here, because it helps when people want to share an email on social media, for instance. They can use this link to place on a WhatsApp group and in social media like Facebook or Twitter or whatever, because it can be shared, right? This is a version that we can open on a web page. So this is important to keep. And then there's the technical again side that we need to also have, which is the unsubscribe link, policies, where we are, what kind of sender is this. So this helps as well on the deliverability side. Okay, so this is the technical side of building the email itself. Okay, now we are going to discuss how you should approach um, your potential subscribers. Why should they subscribe to your newsletter in a way? Okay, so it could be like a lead magnet or stuff like that, but it could also have a page like on this newsletter sign up that we have a clear statement about how many times they are going to receive the email and what it's going to be in there. So it could be like every Monday you get one case study, one insight, and one actionable idea. So three sections. I was placing for three sections about what usually in terms of content we have in our newsletter, and it's all edited by me, Rui Nunes. So I'm the editor of the newsletter. There's a lot of information about what they could find. This is actually a true statement. So we used to charge 76 euros a year, and we were getting about 20 something thousand euros a month by the subscribers that we have. So it's quite a really good business, but it was hurting our conversion into clients. Why? Because people that were subscribing, they were not our ideal customers. Actually, they were competitors or even email marketing professionals as well, because they wanted to learn to have a very cool way of getting their information in a sustainable way, or a regular way. And it was not very good for our main business, which is helping other businesses with their email marketing strategies and so on. So it was not good for the business, but it was a very good side gig in a way. So what I want to show you is the subscription form, and what we have here, it's basically a name that we ask for the users. It's a double opt-in kind of process, and then we have an additional stuff that we are adding for quite some time, which is consent to track what they do inside of our emails. Why? Because it's not only because it's the ethical way of doing that, but because the new rules that are coming up from the EU, and we are an EU based company, it means that we need the people's consent to actually track individually what they do inside of our emails. So this means that if they don't click on this checkbox intentionally, they are not going to be tracked individually. I can still see the whole stats about all of our campaigns. Like we can see how many people have clicked and opened and engage with our newsletter in a way, but we can't see which one of them have done that. Okay. Now, the cool thing about implementing this is that more than 70% of people that subscribe to our list, they click voluntarily on this checkbox. Okay, so there are a few misconceptions about this, but I understand why people consider, okay, but people are not going to in a voluntary way going to click on that. Actually, they do if they think they are going to benefit from that. So imagine this is an email marketing and automation newsletter, right? Or content about these topics. So this means that eventually, if they click here on the I consent email tracking, eventually I'm going to give them a better experience than if they haven't. So they want to see what I'm going to do differently from other newsletters that they haven't placed their consent, right? So it's more appropriately for these kind of business, and I completely understand that. So, but this is important to share as well. Okay. There are a few ways to also, not only for the newsletter, you can have like lead magnets, right? So you could use some kind of insights or ebooks or whatever that you can use as a lead magnet to catch them, or in this case, to collect their interest and eventually to do something about it, right? In terms of nurture of these subscribers and so on. So this is one of our lead magnets. It's to download our email psychology kit and so on. And this is something that they can subscribe. They receive all of that, but they only going to receive the newsletter if they click on that optional checkbox. Other than that, they are just going to download the email psychology kit. But from now on, I have the legitimate interest of sending them the information about this kind of approach, but not the newsletter and nothing further from that, right? So This is how we can use these kind of lead magnets to get their interest. This is another example from one of my other agencies, where we are using a system like this free assessment, which is basically like a very user friendly kind of filter that we do of people interested in this kind of business. So for Zopli, for instance, what we are doing is basically to, if they click over here, which is something that we consider that it's not the best bracket for our business, we actually lead them to a kind of product that we still have, but it's not our main products, right? It's the thing that we used to do that are still profitable, but it's not something that we are focusing so much. So when they click on the under 250K a year, we just explore some of the other products they can have, but it's not the best approach for our businesses right now. So basically, on where you click, you can go there and then understand a bit more about the founder and so on, or the founder, or in this case the person that it's asking for this information, could be like the operations COO or whatever. And then what is the things they want to get rid of, or the pains they have. So this is where they can share a lot of stuff they are struggling with. And basically on the continue, they could fix, if they could fix one of these, like what is your main kind of pain that you want to address. They just select one of them, continue, which tools they currently use. This gives us also some insights about even their the price bracket in a way, because if they use, for instance, Salesforce or stuff like that, eventually they have a bit more complex systems and so on. So this also gives us some hints. And when are they looking to solve this? So it's right now, next quarter, whatever. This is something that they can select, and based on this, it gets the lead hotter or colder in the situation they click, right? So when we see our results, immediately they have like an estimate. It's almost like a do you do it yourself kind of menu. Okay, so they can already understand what could be the best solution for them. So this is for their main kind of pain they want to solve, but also the other ones they also selected. So there's a lot of pricing going on. This is important as well. Why? Because they can filter themselves. If they don't like the prices or whatever, they just move on, and it's less of a lead that we need to nurture if they are not on our brackets of finding this interesting for them. So it's a way to save our everyone's time, right? And we are very transparent about the prices, which also helps. But when they do all of this and they get my report, for instance, they have like the form here. They complete everything, and when they send the report to them, we have a nurture sequence that it's going to give much more information about the products they found more interesting about. So the ones that we have just seen a few moments ago, which uh, feels much more relevant for them, because it's not something that we are trying to advertise every single product that we have. So if you see, there's a lot of products which are irrelevant for some of these needs. So when we send all of this information and this report, they get into a flow that we have, a workflow that has a lot of emails already set up to send to these all of these users. So this is one way to use email marketing from the other end, which is if people are interested in our businesses and so on, we can use email, but they have subscribed in a way. Okay, we are not cold outreaching all of these users, right? Now, going to the next part about using LinkedIn and so on to also get these people on hand, and also how to do cold outreach in a way that it's relevant for them using email as well. That I'm going to discuss this further. Now, one of the things that I usually do when I looking for new clients and so on, instead of trying to the spray and pray in a way of the methodology, which is trying to get every people inside of our target audience to understand how great we are in a way. I'm much more focused, and I use a technique that it's called ABM, account-based marketing, and I find it on B2B much more interesting to use. And what is this? So instead of doing like a very niche kind of situation where we just target a market in a way. It's almost like, okay, companies from this to this, and all everyone inside of this pool, it's already people that we want because it's a product market fit in a way for all of these people. It's not, right? So, because people have different needs on every situation like that. So what I try to do is a bit of that, which is a truly segmented kind of approach, but more focus, almost like a sniper in terms of the companies that I actually want to work with. So before I do my deep research in what it's going to be the best brands out there that we want to work with, right? So instead of trying to go for the market itself, I actually have a list of the companies that we want to work in specific kind of market. So even for instance, the Coca-Cola company, I'm obviously it's kind of difficult in a way to work with the Coca-Cola company. Why? Because they have different branches. They have people that decide a lot of stuff in specific regions and so on. So even for a company like the Coca-Cola company, I want to go even further and okay, let's see who of them are in, for instance, I'm going to place Germany, okay? Because eventually I want to reach out for people inside of Germany, of the Coca-Cola company. So again, what I want to actually do, and if you notice, some of the first recommendations that LinkedIn is showing me are people on the marketing side. Why? Because I'm on the marketing side as well of companies, so they know. LinkedIn knows that I'm looking for people inside of the marketing teams. Now, I can go further and even do more kind of filter on where we want to find the people inside of this company that are interesting for me. But what I want to reach out, for instance, if I'm selling automation um, workflows and so on for these people, what I'm looking for is what I call the buying committee. What is the buying committee? So even though it could be the final decision coming from the CFO, for instance, because it's the one that it's going to approve whatever, or even the champion could be uh, the marketing director or something like that. It's not just a decision from one person. There's a lot of people inside of that organization that are very important to make the decision, right? So that's why we talk about buying committee. So we need to have all of those people that influence the decision on board and to trust our brand, right? So what I usually do is like an approach that it's not a pitchy way. Basically, it's like to try to find those people inside of the company that can influence the decision of which is going to be the source of or the provider for a particular thing that we are selling, right? So what I'm trying to do here is basically to see which of these people I want to connect with. Then I'm going to engage with their posts or comments and so on they do online. So it's important for me to keep an updated vision every day of these people, going through, even if I go every day to their profiles or whatever, they can see that as well. So this person is really interested in, and I become not a stranger, but someone that is interested in what they are saying, especially if I'm not pitching from the cuff. So instead of okay, I have a connection, I'm going to send an immediate cold pitch immediately. How often does that work? Usually, from on my side, never works, right? So what I'm going to do, basically, instead of trying to reach higher numbers, I'm very focused on really trying to understand these people, what are their needs, and how my services or products can be a solution for them. That's the where my need to get them reaches with what they actually are interested about, and that's called relevance, right? So when we have this connection, then I can start in a very slow way to engage with their posts and so on, to engage with them and to start building the trust, and even to share some stuff that it's not in a pitchy way, but for instance, going through some of our recent articles that are, uh, for instance, answering some of their questions, like for instance, SaaS onboarding emails that prevent churn. And I have someone from my buying committee that it's discussing this or comment on this, I can just share this link and to say, okay, we have a very detailed kind of approach about all of this. Maybe you can discuss this further or something like that. And we have that link there, for instance, for them to see it through. This is one way to use our content that it's already created for these kind of cases, and then to approach them not in a pitchy way, but trying to get some clout out of that. And when they see a lot of stuff that we are helping and not pitching, eventually they become much more friendly with our brand, and it's not unknown for them. Okay, so this is one way to use LinkedIn to reach for the best people inside of those potential clients. Then to have this kind of strategy and complement with email marketing as well. So eventually, when you have like after a while that you have already engaged with some of these people, you can, for instance, to try to find their email address, do a cold outreach that it's not pitchy. It's basically to help them in this specific way. Like for instance, oh, I have a solution that eventually can be interesting. It even doesn't need to be your own solution. Could be something that you have already the resources and you are sending an email from your email to their email. It's not an automation platform that it's doing that. And then you have that cloud about, okay, this was very good for me. It was very welcoming because I was actually trying to find something interesting in this department. I already have. So this could be a way for you to receive some goodwill from the other part and eventually to start a conversation. Because if they find it interesting, chances are they are going to reply, even to say, okay, oh, thanks, this was cool, so glad that you have sent this to me, whatever, right? Just a simple compliment. Some don't, it doesn't matter. You keep doing all of this, not as a pitchy way. After a while, that you have these kind of conversations with them, and when the time is right, and you try to feel when the warmth of the relationship means that, then you try to pitch your services, but only on that situation. And this has got us a lot of rewards, not only on the number of new clients that we have, but particularly because it's a sustainable way of getting new clients without hurting our brand, our reputation, our domains, our sender reputation in a way as well. So it's something that it's much more sustainable, even though it takes a lot more time to get there, right? Now, this video is taking a lot of time already, and I'm sure that most of the viewers that start to see this video are no longer here. So I'm going to finish with just a few thoughts of mine on this aspect. So, email marketing, it's still one of the biggest channels in the world in terms of conversion. And the reason is because it's very cheap to use a platform to do it. But with that in mind, it's also increasingly difficult to do it right, because there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of spam already, and particularly with AI, there's a lot of emails that we are receiving that it's getting a bad taste in our mouth in terms of how it's using the so-called personalization, which is not, because there's no human on the loop that can see the entire emails and to really make sure that the relevance that AI is claiming exists. So there's that. And the other thing is that when the cold outreach should be done through email or on LinkedIn and so on, needs to have a really welcoming kind of approach. It shouldn't be immediately on the pitch, because particularly on B2B, you are not every day on a buying mode, right? This is not a B2C kind of approach. So not everyone is on an impulse buying. They need some time to reflect on that, and there's just a few times of the year that we are looking for a particular vendor or something in that market. So we need to start this kind of approach in a very smooth and giving back kind of approach, because that's what it's going to give us best results on my perspective. Again, I'm not one of those that are trying to win the world in terms of getting all of the clients on on this kind of market. I prefer to have a more sustainable business, and what I mean is I don't want to hurt what has taken years to build. So I'm not changing my companies because I've screwed up, and I need to change again and to pivot to another company because I've made a mess of that. So I prefer to have a very sustainable kind of approach that I'm still going to be in business for times to come. Yeah, but this is my approach. It doesn't fit all of the businesses out there, but this is what has made me very the successful, I could say, in terms of getting a very sustainable business, but also not only for me, for our clients. For instance, every case is one case. The purpose of this video is not to give you a full scope about what you should do on every market, business, etc. It's basically to have the common situation that works every time in terms of email, and my approach when it comes to B2B kind of approach on LinkedIn. Doesn't mean that for each business this is the right kind of steps. Okay, for that is best to have case by case, but it's not the purpose of this video. So it's taking a lot of time. It's already almost like an hour of video, so I'm going to end the video here. I hope it could be useful for you. If not, I completely understand it's not your take, but it's mine. It's how I am as a person. So I hope it helped. And if you have further questions of new videos or whatever the content that you want me to share, please feel free to do so by using the comment section here or whatever the repurpose um, system that I have right now on TikTok or Instagram, whatever. Okay. I hope it was helpful. Okay, bye bye. See you soon.